Postma.
Here.
Caravello.
Here.
Doom.
Here.
Hiley.
Here.
Hirsch.
Here.
Jensen.
Here.
Lagaki.
Totally present,
Majewski.
Here.
as opposed to
Reeves.
half.
Here.
Riley.
Here.
Schumacher.
Here.
12 elders present.
Thank you. Before we get started, I would just like to acknowledge that tomorrow will be the 18th year since 9/11, so I just want to take a moment to reflect on that before we get started. Thank you very much. Is there any communications from council members this evening? Alderperson Hiley.
Yeah, so Friday, September 20th, there is in Madison a contingent of the global climate strike. I think it's a really important aspect of strategies we're going to have to take to solve the climate issue, the climate crisis that a lot of us on council are talking about constantly. I think joining movements like that is going to be really crucial to keeping some power with the people and not the corporations that are causing most of the issue. So to find out more about that, go to ycatwy.org, Youth Climate Action Team, and they are handling the plans for that strike. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other communications? Alderperson Lagaki.
The library is starting its focus groups. We've been doing some good assessing of what people are giving input to the library about, and we're starting the focus group phase of what we're doing. So this Thursday, the 12th, and then Monday, the 16th, some of you have been invited to those groups, and we appreciate you going, but I just wanted to make you aware the library is going through a strategic planning process, and we have those focus groups taking place Thursday, Monday, and another one in October. And also, next week, the Landmarks Commission is having its kickoff event with the Lakota Group for our outreach, education, and gauging of interest for the downtown local historic district. And that's taking place next week, Monday or Tuesday. It is not finalized yet, but great questions came from council, and we're going to be happy to answer those. And I just wanted to invite anybody that wanted to be a part of that, that's taking place next week, and I can get you details when it's absolutely confirmed with the Lakota Group.
Okay. Alderperson Riley.
I just actually was hopeful of hearing from Ben, who's now leaving. Time and place. I know it's at the Capitol. I know it's on the State Street side, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't recall what time the climate change action is occurring at.
There are events throughout the day,
Okay.
I think starting with a yoga session at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, I'll be there.
There is part of it, there's a concert at the Capitol at noon, and then there are aspects around MG&E, and then back at the Capitol. I believe it's the north or the east corner of the Capitol that
State Street side, I thought? Whatever. We'll find out.
I'm not sure exactly.
Thank you. Thanks.
I think you know your way around the Capitol.
I do know my way around the Capitol, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other communications from alders?
Just wondering what that email address for the global strike was again, and he's double checking it. I think you said ycat either .net or .org.
YCATWY dot. .org. Yes.
Ben, I'll repost that on Sustainable Stoughton's website too, so you've asked me to do that, and we've done that, so.
To
I'll
be
read
totally
what
clear, YCATWI.org.
Okay, thank you. Any other communications? I just want to put out a reminder for, we have 3 committee of the whole sessions to discuss the operations budget, and I want to make sure that council members have these dates on their calendars. I have, and Jamin, correct me if I have the dates wrong, I have October 3rd, October 16th, and October 24th. And those meetings will be here, and I forget what time.
We have 6 o'clock right now.
And if anybody has a challenge with any of them times or dates, just let us know so we can plan accordingly. But we'll be working on budget, and we'll try to get some materials out to you beforehand.
These dates again?
October 3rd, 16th, and 24th. All right, we have no presentations tonight. There is a proclamation in your packet, and I just asked Holly to put that on there as a reminder. There's,
Something.
pardon me?
I asked Rodney to give us an update on the streets.
Oh, okay. I'll just let you know quick, the proclamation in the packet is for the 100th anniversary for the American Legion, and there is an event this Saturday, which is the 14th at 10 o'clock at our American Legion on North Page Street, and all are welcome to attend. And then we had one more communication.
Yeah, wanted to give you an update on the major street projects that are ongoing. Monroe Street project, most of the underground work is nearing completion south of Main Street. That area has been under constant construction for far too long. But they do plan to start some curb and gutter work on the southern portion of that project next week. They're cutting in road grade in segments of that south of Main Street at this point. They'll be backfilling terraces and filling in flat work for concrete work in that area in the coming weeks. They'll also begin the portion north of Main Street, which encompasses Monroe Street up to Patterson, and Patterson Street fully being reconstructed. So that work will progress. I would like to highlight what I think was actually a success. The amount of work that was completed in the Main Street segment, while that was closed for 12 days, most wouldn't recognize the magnitude of work that was completed there. At one point, there was 3 different underground crews as well as a utility crew working underground, all within that 5-block stretch. So the project scope expanded, but that time window for that work to be completed remained the same. We ended up only having 1 rainout day during that segment of time. So while there were some there certainly was some challenges within the project scope for access. We did keep the window tight, and that 12-day window was successful. Highlight another slight success. We were able to finally get the Lincoln and Jackson Street paved just before school. That wasn't the schedule. It was actually supposed to be completed by the end of July, but nonetheless, we were successful in having that completed and ready for school opening before Labor Day weekend. For those of you that drive in the northern segment of the city, there's 2 intersections that are currently under reconstruction as well. Creedeman and Van Buren, and Johnson and Highland are currently under reconstruction. Those are having stormwater drainage as well as pavement replacement work going on in those intersections now, but they should be completed within the next 2 weeks as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other communications? And we'll move on. Minutes and reports are in the packet. That would take us to the public comment period. And currently, nobody's signed up to speak tonight, but if you would wish to address the council, you could do that now. And nobody's moving, so we'll keep moving along. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. There's 2 items in the consent agenda for consideration. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Jensen and the second by Hiley. Would anybody like the council minutes or the operator licenses applicants removed for the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. There is no old business. New business, we have Resolution 135 of 2019. This comes from Finance, Alderperson Schumacher.
Looks like this is mostly my show tonight, right? All right, I move to council Resolution 135, 2019. The resolution is providing for the sale of approximately $1.9 million in waterworks system mortgage revenue bonds. So moved.
Second.
I heard a second by Jensen. Anything you want to add or introduce, or what would you like to do?
Nothing tremendously. This is just to get some of the water lines replaced in there according, I guess the biggest thing would be to look at that page 7 in that schedule, and that's what these bonds would be going to fund.
Okay. Anything you want to add? Anything you want to add?
Well, we do have Dave Ferris from Ellers, if anybody would like to ask him any questions regarding this. He presented at Finance earlier this evening.
Alderperson Hirsch.
I just have a question, because we know what is stated that these bonds will be paid back through revenue from the wastewater, but also I read in there that if there wasn't, then it would have to increase the levy. How likelihood is that, and what would that all entail?
That's very unlikely at this point. We do forecast out the water cash flows. For 5 years, we look even deeper than that in terms of 10 years, but once you start getting 5 years, past 5 years, it's not all that accurate. But we do forecast out when we need to go in for simplified rate cases and full rate cases to be able to service our debt. Before we would ever actually look at tax levy, we would look at the other utilities first, at the electric utility and the wastewater utility as well, to provide an advance to the water utility to pay the debt service.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jamie, you want to introduce Dave? And
Yep, so this is Dave Ferris from Ellers, probably familiar to some of you.
you want to just give us a brief summary, and then we'll...
Sure. As you know, well, first of all, thank you for letting Ellers serve you. We're new to you this year, and we really appreciate it. And as I said to Finance, it's good to be back for me personally. I did a month as the acting finance director back in like February of 17 or so. I think that's right, isn't it? And so, you know, it was nice to be able to come back and serve the city. As far as the borrowing, the project listing is on page 7, and there's a breakout as to which projects are paid for by the bonds versus cash, which it says utility reserve. Those project costs come forward to page 6, and it shows you how we get to the borrowing size. If anybody has a question on what is involved in that sizing, I'd be happy to answer that. Otherwise, on page 8 is where we have the size, how we're going to pay the bonds back. In the middle of the page, it has the new structure of the new debt. We did some collaboration with staff and came up with what we feel is the right structure for the water utility. It fits within something called the coverage test, which you have to have 1.25 of the net revenues to be able to pay these back, and we're above that 1.25 consistently. So within the coverage test, it works. We have some flexibility in the future, as well as in the cash flows that Jamin has been doing. It fit into his cash flows as well.
Okay. Any questions for Dave? Okay, thank you.
Just you know, as far as calendar of events, we'll be back here on the 22nd of October to provide you with the results of your sales, and we feel like if the rates continue to be as good as they are, we'll have a better result than the 1.9. You'll have a lower issue than that based on how things have been going. So,
Can I just ask a follow-up question? I guess could you just, to pay back this loan with respect to revenue from the water utility and possibly other utilities, are we planning on raising our rates to our consumers to pay for this as well, or how is that going to work? So I guess I'm just, you know, concerned that we keep on increasing the cost to everything.
Well, at this point, yeah, we'll continue to look at periodic rate increases. Regardless of debt issued from a utility standpoint, that's not factored into how they design the rates. It's whether or not you put the infrastructure in or not. And this is all work that needs to be done, so regardless of where the funds come from, whether it's borrowed or if we even had the cash flow, we would still need to earn a certain rate of return on that, so the rates would follow that.
Okay, thank you.
Alderperson Boersma.
Yes, just one question of Brett. I missed it. I'm sorry. What was the discussion like in finance about this particular issue? And what was the vote?
It was, we had a unanimous vote for approving that or recommending to approve to council. Most of it was the presentation by Ellers in there. I mean, we asked a few questions on it, mostly like what the breakdown of the funding was going to be, whether it was going to come out of the bond fund or whether it was going to come out of cash on hand.
Thank you.
Alderperson Bartlett.
The 2019 projects listed, ones that already occurred. I'm looking at like the Monroe Street ones where we just redid the street.
Yeah, they're ongoing, yes.
They're ongoing.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution 136 of 2019 comes from Finance, Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, recommending to council, resolution 136, 2019, authorizing the city of Stoughton Finance Department to create a garbage and recycling service special revenue fund, the refuse fund. So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second by Alderperson Riley. Alderperson Schumacher.
This was to set aside, I think it was it 125,000, Jamin?
No, that was the technology fund. This is to actually
Okay.
basically get the refuse operations out of the general fund. So it's a fee based. We recover it through a fee. It's not really through the tax levy or anything. So to offset any potential increases in future years and that would impact our expenditure restraint within the general fund, we're just basically creating a whole separate fund to run the costs and revenues through.
Okay.
Any questions or comments on that one? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. I'd like to skip the next one. I don't think there's anybody here for that one, so I'd like to just come back to it if that's okay. And go to item number 8, and that would be discussion and possible action regarding John's disposal contract amendment, and that comes from Finance.
Keep it rolling. Which,
Threw a curve at you, didn't I?
I know, I was,
Is there a resolution with
I
that
think
one?
it's just a letter.
How come there's
Yeah, I
just,
think
there's just a letter in there?
Yeah, there's a letter from Brett.
there we go.
there's a recommendation that came out of Finance tonight. And the reason it's on
Right.
tonight is we were hoping to run this through the Public Works, but we couldn't get a meeting together that night. So it's here through Finance and Council on the same night. So that's why it's here tonight. Are you ready?
So ultimately, what we did, we had a discussion about the contract, and John's was looking at increasing their rate by 9.9%, and we got a couple of other additional amendments onto the existing contract, and that would be, correct me if I'm wrong, there's the second trash pickup downtown, and the bulk item pickup that usually occurs at the end of the month would be on an as-needed, as-called into John's basis.
And we have Director Abears here. He can kind of walk us through us, and we have a representative from John's here as well. So, and then we'll take questions, and I'll have.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, we don't have a motion yet, but you can go ahead and give the highlight, and then I'll have Gene on deck.
Yeah, so Alder Schumacher, as he alluded to, there was a request for a 9.9% increase in our solid waste fees, which is above the consumer price index for the Midwest region. So essentially, it's a breach of contract. So we have two choices. Either we can accept the 9.9% increase, or we can go out for bid for a new contractor. The second part of this is also to amend the contract to do bulky collection on a call-in basis. And Nate Austin with John's Disposal is here to talk through that program, and also to give you some background on why the increase is needed. So, Nate?
Thank you. First, we appreciate our business with the city of Stoughton. I think I've talked to most of you now through Public Works or Finance, but the reason that we wrote the letter is all about recycling. We're battling some, it's kind of, we call it, it's like the 500-year flood in our industry, where all of a sudden China, which is, so we would collect your recyclables and we would process them at our facility in Whitewater, and we would send them to China. Most of them. Plastics stay in the Midwest, but the bulk of what we're dealing with is paper and cardboard, and they were the world's largest and highest paying buyer. So your materials were going there, and so 2 years ago China said no more. That's still yet to open up. There's some encouraging things going on in the United States, but it's not this is not a John's Disposal problem. This is not a Wisconsin problem or an America problem. This is a worldwide issue in terms of 60 to 80% of the world's recyclables were going to China. So when they say no, it takes a while for those things to get corrected. And last year we worked as a company to shield our rate increases from our communities. This year we're no longer able to do that, and so we're asking that our communities pay to help offset some of those costs. And so that's kind of the first piece, and ultimately the big reason that we're here is we need a cleaner product, we need a better product, and we're working on some of those things. We're working on some advertising campaigns and better programs with our drivers for finding people that are non-compliant. But at the end of the day, largely it's a cost. Today it costs more to process and market your recyclables than it does to dump them in the landfill, but all of your recyclables are being recycled, and we plan to continue it that way. That's the first reason that we're here. The second is bulk items collection. So we talked about it a little bit at both committee levels, and we want to be able to continue doing what we're doing, and that's taking a lot of junk out of your city month after month that doesn't fit in the carts. Part of what's happening is that program's being abused by whether it's a contractor or a business owner working out of their home, or probably the biggest one is, tenant evictions, or, people just moving out and filling the curb with their junk. And so last year we transitioned about a dozen communities to a bulk on-call collection. Same contract limits, essentially, same level of service. The upside is that now residents would be able to select their collection week rather than waiting for us to route the trucks through the city once a month. And hopefully there's some efficiency gained. If I'm going to come and I'm going to do fewer stops, but I'm going to route them to each home, hopefully that becomes a better thing than in your lower months of the year, January, February, running a truck down every city road, while running 3 trucks if it's your recycling week. So we're trying to correct a little bit of that. So changing to an on-call program, we do have a system in place to help transition the city over. There will be some bumps along the way because some people won't read what we give them or what you give them, but we're committed to making it work in your city, and we believe that your people will really love it, but it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. And then another constant issue we've had is we service the downtown city cans, and we want to increase the frequency on that collection. Changing to a call-in bulk program, for me, gets the right trucks in the area so that we're able to do that. So this is our proposal for your consideration.
Okay, Alderperson Legaki was first.
My question was answered, and thank you.
Okay, Alderperson Hirsch, and then Riley.
For your bulk pickup, is there going to be a charge for the residents to call? And then how are you still going to deal with kind of tenants leaving and filling up the sidewalk? I mean, that was a problem before. How is that corrected with this?
We want to really specify the language in the contract to say what's acceptable. And so part of it is even just having materials prepared for collection. We're going to take some amount of construction waste from homes, but you can't be putting 4x8 sheets of soggy drywall on the ground, and then my guy's at that house for a half an hour. The other big thing I would remind you, next time you drive through on bulk day, your residents are paying $1.65 for the truck to be there. So if that guy's in front of a house for a half an hour, we're getting killed. So that's a part of it. So what we do on our end is when the truck goes there, we're always going to clean it up because that's our job and that's what makes us really good at it. But we're going to start to document these things because now we have the phone call, and so we have the address, and the driver is going to get routed to that house. And it's happening in other communities where my drivers are now sending in a picture and they're saying, here's what we're dealing with here. I kid you not, people have it going from the curb up to their garage door. Just wild amounts of material, and it is happening here. And so when we have that picture, the next time that person calls, we're going to say, last time you were out of compliance, here's what's acceptable, here's what's okay. So it's kind of a, you can get me once, but now you can't get me every month, every time, and that is happening.
No, it's good to know that you're going to do a lot of education as well, and not like fines or charging people, but
we can't do that, and we don't do that. So that's part of the reason we're an all-inclusive, and this is our once-a-year opportunity to address our rates.
Alderperson, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, the second, to go with your downtown pickup, does that also include recycling, or is it just your?
I'll touch on that. We talked a little bit about recycling downtown, and that's going to come next year, and we're going to add some recycling cans downtown and do a kind of a trial basis down there and see what we get for commingling down there, or if it gets, if there's trash in the recycling, then a lot of times it's contaminated, so you may not take it. But it also has to do with the type of lids that we use, so we're going to be making that push as well next year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Alderperson Riley and then Boersma.
Thank you. One, I think your service is excellent generally, so I really appreciate the work you guys do. I'm just curious, again, a little bit more information on the bulk pickup. Would each person designate a week that they generally would make that request, but then they call in advance of that week and say, okay, I actually have something here that I would like you to pick up? I mean, do we first say, I want the second week of each month, regardless, and then you need to call in, though, of course, to say, I have something here this time on the second week of the month?
Not exactly. A little bit of what we're dealing with is become a scheduling nightmare, and so I shared this a little bit at finance. When we started working with the city, we provide this program, and what's happened is it's just gotten wildly out of control, and I think I wouldn't need to tell you that because you're seeing it as you drive around your city. And so what we originally budgeted for is probably, I'm told 2 to 3 trucks, and they're taking out 1 load each time. And that could be 20,000 pounds. Today, we're sending on one day 5 trucks, and they're taking out 3 loads each. So it's just an incredible amount. And does some of it come from outside of the city today? Probably. I know someone who lives in Stoughton. That's true of all of our communities. When that goes to on-call, that stops. So in terms of the actual scheduling, the first phone call is the longest one because we're going to have to put you in our software, and then after that, it's like our software recognizes your phone number, and it's like, okay, is this Matt? Matt, you're calling again? Okay, I got your address in. What are you putting out at the road? Okay, here's the next time our truck's going to be there. Does that work for you?
Okay, so do you need to, though I'm still a little unclear, do you need to choose your week up front then?
No.
No,
Yeah,
you
go
just
ahead.
call when you need it.
Correct.
Just call when you need it, okay,
Yes.
because the language almost seemed to indicate that. I choose week number 3, and then I call it. Okay, good.
Sure.
Just call when we need you. Love it. Thank you. Done.
Alderperson Boersma.
Yeah, just back to your original point, in terms of increases due to the difficulty with recycling, cardboard, and those kind of things. Do you expect, this may be unfair, but do you expect, or have you heard that that's going to be industry-wide increase for the same problem you're having? Like if we would pick a different company or whatever, that we would have the same issues with increase in price?
How everyone does it is a little bit different. I've bid on 1 or 2 communities this year, and I've seen rates come up considerably from incumbent haulers, our competitors. That's not a threat. I think it's a reality. Because for us, we've used the sale we've used the value of the material to offset our hauling rates. And that's not unique to us. When values are good, we're cutting checks to communities, we're cutting checks to haulers, other haulers that dump at our facility because the value's high. So when the value goes low, it hurts us, it hurts everyone.
Just one follow-up on that one, and that is there any like consortium of companies that are trying to find different sources or sort of improve the amount that you get for this, or are you working to try to rectify that issue?
Yeah, so the reason we call it the 500-year flood in our industry is at the same time that China, when we say China said no, what happened is we take your materials, we sort them out, we make a bale of paper, and we make a bale of cardboard. It's not a perfect one because you're not perfect recyclers, nor is any community. So maybe there's going to be 4% out throws in a bale, okay? And so we're sending that, and China needs the paper, or they need the cardboard, and so they take those out throws, and they get rid of them in their landfills or their incinerators, or they use them to power their facilities. When we say China said no, effectively what they did is they went from 4% out throws is acceptable to 0.5%. No facility can produce that. So at the same time, the values plummet, we're having to spend millions of dollars to put in equipment to clean or sort the materials. So that's the future, is creating a cleaner product and getting more out of the bales on the front end, but it's no MRF, and we have two. No MRF is capable of just doing that like that. Or if you're not adding millions of dollars of equipment, you're adding more people on the manual parts of the line to sort it. And it's just not a perfect system. But in the last 2 years, it's come a long way to improve.
And getting back to your original question about the rates, in your packet, I did reach out to other municipalities and what they're paying for rates, and almost all of them are going for a rate increase in 2020. And most of them probably has to do with recycling markets. So we're not alone in this by any stretch of the imagination.
Alderperson Lagaki, did you have a question?
Just looking forward to seeing your the transition materials, because I think that's going to be key. But one question on the bulk pickup, is that going to, and having an old house and appreciating your services, is that going to be a rolling calendar, or is it like only like one call in May, one call in June, or how are you going to do that? And if someone needed something, would you consider adding and negotiating with that person, or is it always, how is that going to work?
The contract the amendment would be really designed to have the service be equivalent to what you have now. And so today you couldn't call me and have me send another truck out because you're working on it. The benefit, I would say, is if you're doing a project on your house in May, time it right. Call me for a pickup in the last week of May and then one for the first week in June. And that's one of the major benefits of picking your week.
And if I did that, I probably couldn't call you again until 30 days past that June pickup, hey? In July?
Correct.
Got it. So it is a rolling calendar.
Yes. It's
Well,
one a
no,
month.
it's a monthly calendar.
It's one a month.
But it could be the first and the last week.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
It's the same level of service, just you have more choice, essentially.
Okay. Are there any, Alderperson Hiley?
If I remember correctly, the collection fees go directly on the property tax bill, is that right? Okay.
It's a fee, yeah.
It's a fee.
It goes out on the tax bill, but it's a fee.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Alderperson Caravello?
And you said that some communities, you started this year with the call-in for the bulk collection. How long of a time period went by before people were figuring it out or catching on to how the new system worked?
Yeah, part of our transition program is to run our normal bulk routes for a number of months until your people understand it. The hard part is, regardless of how you do that or where you do that, at some point there's a hard cutoff, and the only way someone's going to call me is because they're going to call and they're going to say, you missed me, and we're going to say, you missed all the resources that John's has sent you or the city has sent you or the notes that our guys have left for the last couple of months. But now that I've got you on the phone, let me schedule a collection. So I would say we anticipated that in most communities it would be 6 to 8 months before we felt like every person who was going to use the program understood it. I think it happened a little bit quicker than that in most of the communities that we changed.
Alderperson Hirsch.
I have 2 questions. One is, how long is this contract for? Is it just a yearly contract, or is it a 5-year contract, or is it?
We're under contract until 2024.
So it is, okay, so it'll be a 4-year contract.
But if they go above the consumer price index, next year we can make that choice again. They have to give us notice before September of each year.
Okay. And the second question is, as you're rolling out a new plan for bulky and all that, are you also planning on doing a really good educational pamphlet or something you can stick on our recycling bins of how to create a more clean recycling, so we all get educated and it helps you out, and eventually helps us out, because then you won't have to spend as much money or personnel or whatever. So if there's an educational program saying, hey, make your recycling clean because you'll keep our rates down, but it also makes sure that your recyclables actually get recycled and not in a landfill. I think having a really solid educational program of what can go in, what can't, and what's dirty, what's not, would be very beneficial. I mean, we've all heard it, but we've all forgot it too.
Yeah, I think through that marketing push, I think that's all important. We've also, right now, we're going through the process of updating our Public Works page, and trash recycling is a big piece of that. And we can also push that through our social media accounts as well. And also some different materials they're working on with John's as far as this program, if it were to be approved.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have some kind of sticker you put on your recycling bin saying, this is what allowed, this isn't. So when you're about to put it in there, like, oh crap, that doesn't go in there. So.
Okay, Alderperson Riley.
This is really fast. Pizza boxes. People that put pizza boxes into recycling that have tons of guck and cheese and oil, that's not recyclable, is it?
Not today.
Thank you. Because it drives me nuts and I see it all the time. I just thought I'd make that point.
About
Cut off the top of it, put that in, but throw the rest out, right?
when the values were good and we needed material 2 years ago, it was like, let's try everything. Today, it's a little bit more of that when in doubt, throw it out. We got news last week that Waste Management in Wisconsin no longer accepts like 2 through 5 plastics, so some of the changes are coming. And that's what we're trying to stay ahead of.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll look to Alderperson Schumacher to see if you're looking to make that motion that we made at Finance. And I think it was subject to the city attorney review as well. Isn't that what we discussed?
Yeah, review of the amendment that be drafted and submitted to Matt.
Okay.
All right, so Finance Committee recommends approval of the contract amendment for the attorney's overlook of it, and the fee increase, and I so move that.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Riley. One last chance for questions or comments.
Brett, was that unanimous?
That was a unanimous decision, yes.
Yeah. Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Thank you. All right, item number 9, R-138 of 2019 comes from Public Safety, Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Resolution 138, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve a temporary Class B beer and Class B wine retail license and special event license to the Partners of Stoughton Hospital for the Restyle, Repurpose, and Recycle event, and I would so move.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Reeves. Alderperson Jensen.
Yep. Well, Chief isn't here, but as I recall, this is a annual event, or it's been, is this the first time? Okay, I can't remember. But he said everything was in order, and no reason to say no.
Okay. And there are a couple of people here. Did you want to come up and promote your event, or don't be shy, now's your chance.
Well, if you've ever heard of flea market flip,
Unless you're sick.
this is the Stoughton version.
Unless you're
So
sick.
we have people who have found things in their attics or their basements and.
Or the curbside.
Curbside.
As we were just discussing.
Recycled items. And a couple of years ago, we had a chair auction where people redid chairs. This is more, involving more items. So it's just a first attempt to raise money for the hospital for some of the needs on their wish list.
Okay, and how can we find out more about your event?
It's on the hospital website, and we have some posters here I can lead to.
Excellent.
It's October 16th at 6 o'clock at Lingerie, which is the repurposed
Yes, I think so.
warehouse downtown, so it kind of fits with our theme.
Yes.
Excellent. Alderperson Boersma.
If I could just ask a couple of questions, actually. Do you expect to raise money through this project by selling beer? I mean, is that your purpose, or is it simply for the sort of social entertainment part of it?
Yeah, right.
The auction part is where we're hoping to raise money on the ticket sales.
That's the
And
primary.
and do you expect children to be at this event? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
But we will be checking IDs. We do have an app on phones to check IDs. We've
Okay,
discussed
so it'll be
that.
primarily adults who attend?
Yes.
And, okay.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
And one abstention. Okay, thank you. You bet. What? Oh, she did. Did you have a question?
I just correct the spelling on restyle
Oh.
for the resolution.
Resettle.
It's okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes.
Resolution 139 of 2019 also comes from Public Safety.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's R-139, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve a temporary Class B and Class B wine retail license and a special event license for Relay for Life for the home tour opening gala, and I would so move.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Riley, Alderperson Jensen.
Yep, this is an annual thing. I don't see anybody here to speak for it. Anybody? Nope, okay. Again, Chief didn't have any concerns about it, and I don't see any reason to say no.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this one? Alderperson Boersma?
I would just ask Alderperson Jensen whether or not children are going to be part of this?
I believe at the gala, there's the opportunity, yes. I'm sure it'll be families.
And again, you know, if my sort of standard is if there's children involved in an event that is going to promote or have, you know, the use of alcohol, I am going to be voting against.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, no.
One opposed, that motion carries. And R-140 of 2019 comes from Public Safety.
Okay, one last one. It's R-140, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve a Class B fermented malt beverage license to Gemini Games, LLC, doing business as Gemini Games. Brianne Farrell, okay. Agent, and they're located at 193 West Main Street, and I move for approval.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Riley. Alderperson Jensen.
Yes, it's a new business in town. It's board games, and they're offering beer to their patrons, and it'd be a 21-year only. They're planning on having just one day a week, or a month, I guess it is, that it'll be closed to alcohol. And all the alcohol will be locked up, and they're going to have that open to everybody at that one day. So the couple is here to speak to it if you have any questions for them.
Are there any questions?
So,
I have Alderperson Schumacher and then Boersma.
What will be your hours of operation, your normal business hours?
The typical so we're currently feeling that out in our kind of soft opening before we decide to cut down on our hours, but right now we are open from 11 to 8 p.m. on weekdays, and largely noon to 11 p.m. right now on Friday nights and Saturday nights, and then noon to 9 p.m. on Sunday.
Okay, thank you.
Alderperson Boersma and then Reeves.
yeah, so this is a 21-year-old bar, essentially?
That's what it would be established as, yeah. One thing that we want to make super clear is that there will not be minors on the premises while any beer is being served.
Unaccompanied minors.
Unaccompanied minors, yeah. In the event that we do youth days or youth night, like any other tavern, and that, as would apply under that section of the law, we would make sure to provide that information scheduled to the police department ahead of time, and seek approval from them, and then everything for all of our fermented beverages would all be locked up and completely out of the reach. Those would be either behind the point of sale system where we stand and locked up, or we would have them locked up in our supply area in the basement.
Thank you.
Alderperson Reeves.
I just was going to comment that I actually have heard some positive feedback from some people that have been there, some younger people, and they see it as a gathering place. I know games are really popular with, generation younger than me, probably some older folks too, but I know that the people that I've heard from see it as a gathering place and are looking forward to it, so.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Thank you. Good luck.
I have a quick question, and I don't know if anyone here can answer it, but yesterday at the I'm so
Planning
sorry, I'm
Committee.
not feeling very well today. At the meeting, was that are we officially allowed to sell things now, or is there a meeting on the 24th?
There will be a meeting on the 20th, so the Plan Commission recommended to council to approve the conditional use.
So there is a meeting on the
it'll become
24th.
official on the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, R 141 of 2019 comes from Community Affairs Council Policy. Alderperson Legaki.
Resolution R 141, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to amend the fees associated with the building use policy. I so move.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Riley. Alderperson Legaki, you want to walk us through this?
Sure, lots of discussion on this, and this also went to city leadership management group, where we, I think I want to direct you to the point that we discussed the most. This looks pretty much the same except for the potential cost. And so on page 2 of the attachment, under the facility user fee schedule, that is where we spent a lot of time discussing. We didn't want to appear that the city's making money from the rental of rooms, but yes, we wanted to recoup potential costs and have someone who opens the doors and not. And so we wanted to come up with a fee that's attractive to people. And so we believe we may have found it. And so the quick example is that if somebody has a 1-hour meeting at 10 o'clock, hopefully the doors and everything would be open accessible at 9:30. The meeting ends at 11, and then they are the next half hour to finish off and move on. And so their cost would be $20 for that 1-hour meeting because of the fee. In here, it's termed as a half hour before and after, but really, we saw that as, that's like a flat fee of $10 to get this thing scheduled, the before and after. So a 1-hour meeting is $20, a 4-hour meeting is $50. We believe it's still affordable and hopefully makes it accessible. So that was our biggest discussion on that. And the rooms and the times that they're available and the standards of them being responsible for damages are clearly stated. We believe that this will hopefully be the moderation point where we're not making a ton of money, but yet we are providing a service for our community for people to meet.
Okay. Excellent summary. Any questions or comments?
Here.
Alderperson Hiley.
I might be mistaken about where we ultimately landed on this at CACP. I thought we were going to clean up the language so that we didn't have the half hour before, half hour after, and just tie that into that $10 flat fee. But I think that makes it less confusing. Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
That's how it was.
And that is my memory too, and so I just wanted to say the half hour following and the half hour after does still compute the same. Do we find that confusing?
Well, right now, the policy does include the half hour before and the half hour after, and a flat fee of $10. So if you wanted to remove that language, the half hour before and half hour after, we take that out.
Where is the flat fee language? 'Cause
The bottom.
The flat fee is only on the fee.
On the fee.
form.
Oh, it's not in the facility user area. It's in a different place.
That's where, yeah, that's where it originally was.
Okay.
So I would move to amend this to what we intended and cut out the language about 1/2 hour before and 1/2 hour after. So we would end up with $10 an hour plus a flat fee of $10.
And you might want to
So
also.
that'd still be $20?
For the,
For a single hour, it would be 20,
Yeah.
2 hours, 30.
You might also want to suggest amending this hourly rental fee and taking out the language there as well on the
Yes, down
worksheet.
on the form as well.
okay.
Now we feel we have it. I was
All right.
putting it out there a little conditionally.
So
The
I would need a second to the amendment.
I'll second his amendment.
Okay, second by Alderperson Schumacher. Any discussion on the amendment? Does everyone understand it? Alderperson Hirsch.
Well, because I was just going, because I apologize, I wasn't at that last meeting. But according to the minutes, it said that you had changed it from a half hour to a quarter hour, and it was, that's in the minutes.
That was in the previous meeting. before
Okay,
the last
so then you
meeting.
guys changed
Last
it again?
minute,
Yeah.
we
Right.
got rid of that thinking.
Yep.
Okay, so that's why I was a little confused, because we're not up to date with the minutes, okay.
We liked the language of the flat fee for scheduling, and that infers that it'll be open before and after. We want it very clear on the cost.
Alderperson Boersma.
Yeah, maybe one of you could answer this. Are there any exceptions? Like, for instance, is a library an exception? Or I know that the library has been doing sort of something different sometimes than other facilities. And the
They have their
library
own
is the-
policy, don't they? Yeah, they'll,
Covered by this one.
yep, they're not on the list for this particular policy. They have their own in, yeah, so,
Any other exceptions besides what I just said?
It does say rental fees may be waived by the building director's request or judgment for specific charitable or nonprofit activities. So I think that'd be up to the building director.
yes.
And who makes that decision?
Building
It could be
director.
different depends on which building. If it was Public Works, it would be Brett, for example. If it was Opera House, it would be Bill. If it's City Hall, we'd flip a coin and see who wants to make that. I think that would probably be Rodney.
We don't allow you.
Yeah.
Not covered under this.
Yeah, City Hall isn't on the list.
Well, and I raise that because I think the City Hall is really the municipal building rather than the Opera House, but you know, if people want to use an empty space in the municipal building, seems to me that that should be an exception.
Yeah, basically what we're trying to do is cover our cost to have a room observer to make sure that there's no damage incurred while the activity is going on. And there was several examples that we discussed at leadership where that has unfortunately occurred over the years. So really the charge is to cover the cost to make sure that that doesn't happen. It's kind of a preventive measure.
Well, we've had, just to respond, we've had a fairly liberal policy for the use of the municipal building downstairs, and it seems to change that a bit.
When you say municipal downstairs, do you mean the Opera House on this list?
It's actually the municipal building. I think they're calling it the Opera House, but it's really the municipal building that I'm referring to, right? For there's a number of rooms downstairs where there's meeting rooms.
It's now the Opera House facility.
Yeah. All the buildings are municipal buildings. So if it was the Opera House, you talk to Bill. If it's the senior center, you talk to Cindy.
Okay. Well, and everybody knows I object to the use of the municipal building being recalled the Opera House because it really is the municipal building.
And we certainly want to encourage people to use the buildings when they're available. And like I said, all we're trying to do is protect our buildings and the equipment that's in them. And that's basically the purpose of the policy, and I think that goes back several years. So if there's a group that wants to do it, they can certainly reach out to the individual building director and work on those arrangements. Is there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes, no.
One opposed. Okay. That was for the amendment, so that takes us back to the original motion as amended. So we still have to vote on that. Okay, any questions on the motion as amended? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One opposed. That carries. We have two more items. Resolution 142 of 2019 comes from Finance.
All right, Finance recommending Resolution 142, 2019, authorizing the disposal of excess topsoil from the business park expansion project and directing the mayor to enter into agreements with the affected landowners and an associated change order with the contractor. So moved.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Jensen. Alderperson Schumacher.
So in the business park expansion, which is, Rodney, what is the street that's going? I forget the
Glacier
name.
Moraine Drive.
The Moraine Drive. We'll have some topsoil excess. The plan is to move it onto the adjacent farm fields instead of having to haul it away. So this was a part of part of a different resolution for 2.2 million that we did for this road, and eventually this resolution ends up in a net savings on that project.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything you want to add, Rodney?
I can just add, the original contract had us redistributing the topsoil onto the land that we were marketing for sale. Excess topsoil on those lots would be less desirable because somebody building a building may have to remove it or move it again. Conversations with an adjacent landowner matured. They're working through a permitting process to allow this excess topsoil to be placed on their tillable land. They actually want to use it to top off some of their thinner areas where they don't have as much topsoil and improve the yield on some areas of their tillable land. It'll allow us to not have to stockpile it, if you will, on our own site and make the land more marketable. Ultimately, it's a net savings for the city if we're able to pull everything together in the last phases of discussions here.
And I would just add kudos for Rodney for coordinating this, so it's a good thing. Alderperson Boardsma?
I just, if Alderperson Schumacher could summarize again on this one, the vote. It was just held tonight, as I understand it, so was it unanimous or
This was a
whatever?
5-0 vote, yes.
Yeah. And this one came up fairly quickly as well. I think there was a conversation several months ago, and really wasn't any follow-up until recently. And we have excavators that are going to be out at the site shortly, so that's why it's here on short notice. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. We're going back to Resolution 137 of 2019. Jamin's been waiting all night to introduce this. It comes out of the Finance Committee. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, Finance Committee, Resolution 137, 2019, the resolution approving an affordable housing extension through tax increment District Number 3 to benefit affordable housing and improve housing stock within the city of Stoughton. And I'm just going to turn it right to Jamin.
You want to move that?
And I'll move that, yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second by Alderperson Hirsch. All
There's too
right.
many of them.
Yeah. It's like stereo effect here.
There you go.
Director Friedel, it's all yours.
All right, I will try to give you the short version of this. We have an option. I think we have to do it by November 15th, I believe, to either extend TIF number 3 or terminate it at this point in time. So if we chose to terminate it, we would collect the revenue in 2020, the TIF would terminate, we'd move on from that TIF number 3. State law does allow us to extend it for 1 year and take that final 12 months of increment and use it towards an affordable housing program. We brought this to finance a number of times, actually, kind of kicked it back and forth, fine-tuned it, things like that. The gist of the program that we put together, which is amendable at any point in time as we close additional TIFs, have more money available, things like that. But the pilot program we have, it has 3 different programs within it. One involves the Stoughton Housing Authority, which would be a grant to assist them with their capital improvements plan. Everything would have to be applied for up front. It would be on a cost reimbursement basis. It would go to finance. It would go to council before any monies are reimbursed to them. The second part of the program is a down payment program up to $5,000 for first-time home buyers. It would be no interest, max term of 15 years. There's some other things that can happen if the house is sold, if they choose to turn around and rent the property, things like that, that the loan would actually come due. But the max term would be 15 years, no interest. And then the third part of the program is for an environmental remediation assistance. We really want to key this towards the lead service issue. So we wrote the agreement to be a $1,500 cost reimbursement for lead service replacement, 100%, or $1,500 cost reimbursement that would be up to 50% of a project cost. So if somebody came in and had lead painting or asbestos that they wanted to remove, and the total project cost was $3,000, we would pay them $1,500 to get that project done. Again, and that would be on a cost reimbursement basis as well. All these programs would be worded or run through finance and through council prior to approval. We haven't worked out the fine tuning on the applications and things like that. We have time for this. The money won't be available until 2021 at this point in time, but again, we have to have this passed through council by November of this year.
Alderperson Hirsch and then Boersma.
I have a couple of questions. So by extending this TIF by 1 year, so is this program then only going to be good for 1 year, or how does that work?
No, the money would go in perpetuity for the programs that are not considered a grant. So really the down payment assistance program could run in perpetuity. So we would basically set up a separate fund, affordable housing, TIF 3 fund, or whatever we choose to call it. We'd loan the money out as the money came back in and go back into that fund and be able to be reused. The Stoughton Housing Authority piece is a grant, so that money, once that goes out, it's done. And the environmental remediation is set up as a grant as well. In the scheme of dollar amounts, we're not talking a ton of money at this point in time. We're estimating maybe $500,000, but in terms of an annual TIF increment that's at the end of its life, that's actually pretty small. So as we get closer to closing out TIF 4 and move down that road, we can look at this program and try to build some more sustainable programs out of those closings.
And I just want to comment that I really like the the contaminated, the lead, and that includes what we've been talking about at utilities for the last year to try to get people to take advantage of replacing their lead pipes. So I think, thank you for putting that in there. I think that's fantastic. Is there a limit to how many people, so next year's streets program, if there's 20 people that have lead in their homes, will there be enough money in there for those 20 people to be part of this?
Well, it wouldn't be until 2021. We have to make sure that all the project costs are paid, but in 2021, the requirement would be, because this isn't tied strictly to low income or affordable housing, 75% of the increment that we have available in that last 12 months has to go to an affordable housing program, which would be the down payment assistance or the Stoughton Housing Authority capital improvement plan. 25% is only available for this program. We're estimating around $125,000 that would be available for this.
Total.
Total, yes.
So that could get depleted pretty quick.
At $1,500 a pop, and you know, considering how many people jump at it, I think it could go on. You know, this money will go in, it will accrue its own interest. That interest will stay within the fund, so we'll get a little additional money that way too.
So anybody can, because that's a separate program, that's not necessarily low income, anybody in the city could apply for that part of it?
Yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Alderperson Boersma?
Yeah, just an observation and then a question. Originally, there was some talk about having this particular money go to actual affordable housing, maybe projects like the Pine Street project, or you know, I know that a couple of the other entities had talked about knowing about the potential. And so if a project like the Pine Street project or Moving Out or Habitat or whatever would want to apply for some of this money, would that be applied for through the Housing Authority, and that the Housing Authority would be authorized to allow that expenditure to go out from whatever they had in their amount? Or?
No, the Housing Authority would have to be the property that the Housing Authority owns.
Okay, so that's
basically
this is not
Greenspire, yes.
going to be used for that project as it's
Right, we're trying to help Greenspire get caught up on some remodeling, because some of their costs, because of the construction costs going up, they had a deficit in order to continue on their schedule to rehab the apartments. So that money will go specifically toward those rehabs for the people that are already living there.
And I would ask then a follow-up question, and that is that are you pretty certain that this is how the TIF money is, at least by law, supposed to be used when you close a TIF out like that?
Yes, we've had the Department of Revenue, the Public Service Commission, Stafford, and Gary Becker sign off on this at this point.
Yeah, this is something that they're promoting when we go, and several of us, and actually people from the RDA as well, have gone to affordable housing summits and conferences and seminars. And this is one of the things that we've learned when we've been going to these events. And what we did is we brought the information back to Jamin, and he did the rest of the research. And him and Ryan put this program together based on input from the Finance Committee. And that's kind of how we came up with this.
It just strikes me that this is a little bit different than how I think some people had the expectation of how this money was going to be used in terms of affordable housing, specifically for Stoughton. And I'm one of those people who didn't understand it completely as how this was supposed to be divvied up rather than it going directly for affordable housing, which is a very important need in Stoughton, I might add.
We totally agree, and we hope that this will be kind of the pilot program. And when we close the next TIF, we can certainly look at other opportunities other than just what are listed here. This is our first one, so this is kind of what we came up with. Alderperson Riley.
Thank you. You know, I've been waiting all night for this. And that is because there's a typo here, and I just want to show up that I really read these things. It's in paragraph 4. It says City of Stoughton, like there's a sub-city of Stoughton, but there's really only one Stoughton.
It's our
So
alter ego.
I think we should, right. So I think perhaps that should be corrected. Other than that, it's beautiful. Thank you.
I missed that. I've looked at this so many times and I still missed it.
Alderperson Legaki.
You, Mayor, you just commented and answered most of my question, but just wanting to ask and clarify. So this is for sustaining our current affordable housing in the Greenspire project only. Jamin, are you able to comment on potential avenues for expansion of affordable housing in the future, or is that not something that we can talk at this busy time about?
Not as part of this pilot program at this point in time, at least not through a TIF extension funding. The issue with Greenspire right now is their capital needs assessment, CNA, was drafted in 2014 and grossly underestimated what these costs would be. I think they were factoring in about $100,000 per year to rehab 6 units. Costs have inflated exponentially, where the cost per unit now is closer to $70,000. They certainly don't have the ability to raise the rents that high. The rural development will not subsidize them to that tune. So they'd basically be on track with their current funding to maybe do a unit and a half per year. Greenspire is set up as the lowest of the low-income housing that we have available, and this is one step towards allowing them to continue down that capital needs assessment path. So it's certainly not ideal. We would love to have other opportunities with this money, but this is the current situation as it is. So things could happen. Rural development may come back and say, you know what, we're going to subsidize this for you and give you more money, but it's also at the federal level. That could be 3-4 years down the road. We're looking into writing some grants for Greenspire and seeing if maybe we can just get out from under that federal umbrella. But again, all of that takes time. If any of that does come to fruition, we can certainly go back and amend this program at any point in time with whatever money we have left.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Alderperson Hirsch.
Is Jamie going to be the administrator of this program, or who's administrating this program and overseeing it?
I think Rodney is, actually. No. Yeah, this would fall under the finance department.
Okay.
All right. Alderperson Hiley.
Just glad we're able to free up some money to make this a more affordable place to live.
Sounds good. And then after 2021, then we'll close the TIF then at that point.
Yeah, the TIF will terminate in 21.
And then at that point, there'll be revenues available then as well.
Yes, we've done some math. So the city doesn't lose out on any money at this point in time. It's delayed for another year at that point. The cash out, I can't say exactly. It's not a huge cash windfall for us. I'm not even going to say off the top of my head, but maybe 200 grand, something like that. The increase to our base levy last time I looked at, and obviously things will change as time goes on, but we may be able to increase our base levy by about $60,000. So there will be some benefits once we close this out as well.
But it sounds like this program will far outweigh the benefits. We can wait a year. I think it's money well invested in the community, so thanks for putting it together. Alderperson Boersma.
Just one more question, and that is, do you anticipate any other TIDs to be closing down like this?
I imagine every time we close a TID, we'll look at this as an option.
Anticipated in the next 5 years?
Yeah, TIF 4 is right, pretty close to that 5-year window, 5 or 6.
Do you have any idea about how much money we might expect to glean out of that?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure where their annual increment is. That's the downtown TIF. A lot could happen. It could be a significant amount by the time we get down that road.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one more clarifying question, because this is TIF number 3 or TID number 3. All this money doesn't have to stay in that.
No.
TIF. It can go anywhere in the city.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that was clear. Unlike TIF 4, where all the use of that extra money has to be in.
Yep, because the
Oh.
TIF 4 is still active. We're not in that extension period. This would be available for anywhere in the city.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Motion to adjourn by Jensen, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Caravello, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you.
Give you a mega.